BD5 Pilot with you out at the Hillsboro hangar on a Saturday morning. It's April 13th, and I'm getting ready to weigh the aircraft again since I basically have all the components that are going in it, less the wiring harness. So you can see I've set the scales up, and I've put the GPS 20 up under the where the glare shield is. It's going to mount underneath that glare shield. There's the battery backup for the G5 resting in there. I've got the GMU 11 magnetometer mounted where it's going to be placed on the right wing. I've taped up the wingtip lights so that they're in position. I've put the counterweight up on the elevator. And basically most of the screws, I've got to put this panel back on, and I've put the carbon fiber NACA duct in its location as well. So it's not going to be a big weight factor there, but everything's going to be where it's going to be. I have placed the rubber donut close to the position it's going to rest, although it's going to have a different one made a little smaller than that because the output shaft off the ZDZ 500 is a little smaller than the output shaft that would have come off of the engines that normally get installed in here. I have also already the autopilot servos and the actual mounting kits are in there as well, the gasculator. And look at that, there's the alternator resting close to its final position. I have to fabricate a little bit of a mount. When I make the motor mounts, which I'm in the process of designing, those are going to accommodate that alternator. And the weight on the wood here is probably relatively close to the weight of the aluminum components that are going to go into these locations. And I've placed the remote radios, the solid state box there that's for my replaces the having breakers in the aircraft. Ignition's a little forward or a little rear where it's supposed to be, but that's not going to be a big factor in weight. But I'm going to put that panel back on and then drop this down on the scales, knowing that the aircraft is going to be tail heavy now. It's not going to want to rest on its nose wheel with the weight of the engine back there. But as soon as I get the figure on what the weight is with me inside the aircraft, I'll be able to tell, do I need to mount certain components in different locations? Do I need to move where I'm planning on putting the battery? Do I need to move where I'm planning on putting? There's a backup battery too, one of those IBBS TCW batteries. And I've got a lot of options as to where I could install that. So let's go to work with the weigh-in, and I'll see what I find. And there we get a look into the engine compartment with those side covers in place, those NACA ducts, which are going to be then feeding the plenum on top of the motor, and so that you eventually will not be able to see the drive from here because there'll be something blocking that view. But first time either of us got to see that. All right, I believe I have the aircraft ready for the weighing. The thing I need to find out first is how much do I weigh, and I'm sure Alex Wigley's wondering that. And the scale says 196.5, all clothed and shoesed up. Yes, I weigh less when I'm in the morning before I get dressed. Well, I'm in the plane now, and I can tell you a few things. I love those sills for climbing in. And let's go take a look at what the weight says. 237.7 on the left main. And see, that front is staying around 69.9. Right main is 234.2. So I penciled everything out and actually taken and setting up a plumb bob and taking my actual measurements for where I want to put those points for the main gear, where they rest off the nose, figuring on the 10 inches off of the nose. There's about a 1/4 inch there that there's the way the nose sticks out where the pitot attaches, that I had to take off those initial measurements. So my final measurements was at 83.625 for the main, 16.375 for the nose gear, and then those are the weights that I got. So I got a total weight with me in the aircraft of 541.8. So when you take my weight off, that gives us 345.3 pounds for the aircraft, less the wiring harness at this stage, a couple other little incidentals. So probably going to be right around that 350-pound thing. But the exciting thing has to deal with the weight and balance. So when I take and plug those figures in, end up with a CG point there at 74.949. And when I plug that into my program here, you can see And then that gives me the range of fuel for 26 gallons. So I'm up at the forward range for my CG, so I don't need to put any more weight on the nose of the aircraft. I can keep the batteries where they are, though. And then as I burn through the fuel, the weight will tend to work its way aft, but I'll still be within a completely safe range on the aircraft. So exciting to see what the final figures end up after wiring harnesses in, but this is very promising, especially not having to add any weight fore or aft onto the aircraft. And as you can notice, I've pulled the engine back out, and I can go to work with now making the little mounting plates for the autopilot servos, the gasculator, get back to work on the underneath where the gear goes here, make sure everything's tight and safe before I seal that all up. And of course, I have to put the fuel lines up through there as well. So I'll have that part completed before it gets put back together next time. So I'm going to say not necessarily a productive day for stuff getting done, although it's a productive day for measurements and confirming things that I've been calculating. So I'm close to my weight calculations, and what's really exciting is the fact that the weight and balance is right there where I was expecting. So I don't have to start moving things around to accommodate an incorrect weight and balance on the aircraft. I'm going to call it quits for today. BD5 Pilot out.